Hey, hi everyone, it's Dr. Leola here, and this is just a quick video to walk you through the augmented reality prototype in a little bit more detail than what I gave at the end of the augmented reality like full lecture video. So all of the information that I'm going to share in this video you can also find on the course website. It's in the assignment sheet, which is linked to your assignment submission portal, and it's also described in text in the weekly modules book. So if you can't run this video or you can't stream it or you don't want to, that's fine. You can find all this information on the site in other forms as well. Okay, so first, this is the final prototype that you'll be doing for this class, and it is to close out our augmented reality unit. The main goals here are to kind of use critical making techniques, which is what we've been doing throughout the semester. First, to explore certain storytelling potentials of using augmented reality, and second, to demonstrate an understanding of how augmented reality technologies work, either through actually creating some AR or by demonstrating through other prototyping means that you understand how it would work if you had that tech available. So this prototype, you have three different options for how you want to complete it. And that is mainly to acknowledge kind of the change in our environment for learning right now. I don't know what kinds of tech access you all have at home, and I don't know how comfortable you are working without a lab or library or a gathering space. So there's a few different ways that you can approach this to kind of accommodate that. So option one is kind of your biggest digital tech option, and that is to create an Instagram face filter using the program Spark AR. This is a studio program that's free to download, supported by Facebook. And in a lot of ways, it's almost created to create AR content for Facebook-owned social networks like Instagram. So there's lots of tutorials, lots of support, lots of examples for things you can do, lots of assets you can get, and so on. So if you want to kind of explore actually making something in AR, this is your option for that. So that will just be to create one face filter for Instagram using Spark AR. You do not have to post it to Instagram or make it live. But what you do need to do is kind of pay attention to using things, or I guess what I'll be looking for this is to make sure that you actually have effectively mapped content onto a face, that you've thought about some of the specifics to what goes into creating an effective AR narrative, as I talked about in the lecture video. So you've thought about the context, you've thought about the trigger, you've thought about the content, and so on. So that'll be the main thing for option one. Option two is to takes kind of like one step away tech-wise, and that is to create a short chapbook. It can be either physically bound pieces of paper, or it can be electronic as a PDF, using the QR codes and camera program that have been used, created and shared by Amaranth Borsuk for Between Page and Screen. So this text, even though we didn't get to play it, you just watched a video of it, this is a text that actually, along with the text itself, the authors have made their software open source that actually reads the QR codes and the QR codes. It's very easy to do, but basically what you'll be responsible for here is following their tutorial for DIYing your own kind of example of this kind of text, and then thinking about what kinds of things you might write that could be projected through these QR codes in a similar model to Between Page and Screen. So this is like a medium tech heavy option, and it's kind of, but it's like maybe a little bit more text heavy in the sense that it's thinking kind of poetically about augmented reality text rather than image or other types of assets. And then finally, your third option is kind of the lowest tech option, and that is to create a rich, detailed paper prototype of an augmented reality narrative with triggers and other storytelling elements like image, text, and so on, that's going to be on a model similar to the AR stories that you read in the New York Times. So in this case, you'll basically just use paper to plan out how this story would go. You should actually plan to write the story and actually create image assets or other augmented reality assets that would work. And then you will digitize this paper prototype using the Pop by Marvel app, which is free to download from the App Store. For both option 3 and option 2, where you're actually kind of creating something of a narrative, you can write about any topic you want, but some suggestions for this is first, as usual, that the the option of revisiting a familiar story that you already know, like a fairy tale or a fable or something, and creating like an AR version of it, that's totally fair game. Another option would be, again, kind of thinking about the New York Times more specifically, to create a kind of news story or even like personal reflection story about COVID-19. So you might, for instance, do something like a typical day for you right now, or showing off your space using AR triggers or something like that. Again, this is kind of narrative loosely defined, but it should be clearly articulated as a narrative, and I should be able to see some kind of storytelling elements in this final product. For both option 2 and option 3, which are more narrative driven, you will have to create 5 triggers. So either 5 QR codes, so 5 pages in the chat book, or 5 would-be triggers and would-be AR assets in the paper prototype. Okay, so we're not going to do any play testing for this particular unit. I'm going to have you guys just work kind of on your own, but this has a different submission process than the previous prototypes. So because we're working in different materials here, and I'm not really sure how to get you to send me the stuff that you're working with. What I'd actually like you all to do is to create a video recording of yourself kind of working through and showing off the prototype. So if you do a face filter, that'll be a video of showing how the face filter works. So kind of showing off how it finds your face, how it finds the trigger, what kinds of augmented reality features are displayed, how it responds to movement, right? Any of these kinds of things. For option 2, that'll be actually like holding up the chat book and running through it in the screen, similar to what Amaranth Borsuk does in that YouTube video that you all watched. And then for the option 3, you'll actually record yourself going through the paper prototype and showing off all of the features, similar to any kind of paper prototype video that you could find on the web. And then I've actually linked a handful of those that are particularly useful, both for thinking about paper prototyping as a practice and for demonstrating how it works. I've linked a few of those in the weekly modules for this week, so you can look at those if you're thinking about taking on that option. So you'll actually submit the video, or more correctly, a link to the video. So please don't send me the video file. That's gonna totally ruin Moodle. So put it on YouTube or Dropbox or Drive or Vimeo or something, and then share just the link with me rather than the video file itself. As with everything, you will also create a designer statement. This one, again, is going to be that 500 to 750 word range. Taking account or keeping into account expectations for written communication in English. You don't need to stress too much over kind of like formality, but it should have, you know, capitalization, punctuation, paragraphs, and all that good stuff. And it should talk about the usual topics. So your creative and critical goals for the project, what brought you to the topic, what were you exploring, how did you decide which option to do, and so on. Then how well you think your current design achieves the goals you're going for. But of course, acknowledging, right, the form that the design currently takes. So if it's paper prototype, of course, it's not going to be in its final form, but how well do you think that design would work if in a final kind of AR form? And then finally, how would you enhance or expand the project given more time and resources? But I'd like you here to think more expansively than just putting it into a fully operational and fully rendered AR form. So think a little bit more expansively about kind of like where you might take the narrative, what kinds of additional AR assets you might include, how you might think creatively about triggers, right, and so on for that final question. Okay, so all of this, I'm shifting up our kind of 1 week wrap up here. All of this is going to be due a week from Wednesday. So it's going to be due on April 22nd at 11:59 p.m. That is reflected in Moodle, so you should see that in those calendars. So that just gives you like a full weekend to work and then a couple more days next week. And if you want to check in with me for office hours twice, you have that opportunity. So that's why we've kind of extended that. As with all the prototypes, this carries a 10% weight for your final grade. And I will be primarily looking to make sure, as I said, that you've kind of thought expansively and critically about what goes into creating a good augmented reality narrative, how you can use triggers, that you've really kind of thought critically and expansively about the technology that you're using, that you've hit all the technical requirements, so like the five pages for the chapbook, 5 triggers for the times, and so on. And then that your designer statement, as usual, kind of responds expansively and critically to all the questions that I've asked. You can see a detailed breakdown of the assessment in the assignment sheet attached to Moodle. But I think it's nothing should be a surprise at this point as to what I'll kind of be looking for and how I'll be assessing you. So I look forward to seeing your work here. I think I hope you kind of have fun with this unit. As I mentioned in the lecture video, this is I think this is kind of a fun space. So I hope that you can as well. And please continue to take care of yourselves, to practice good social distancing, hand washing, all that good stuff. We are almost done. I know this is kind of really starting to kind of wear on us all and kind of getting a little old, but we're nearly there. So keep up the good work, everyone, and I will talk to you all soon.